How should you maintain your corporate records? My name is Andrew Ayers. I'm a business attorney. Today we're going to talk about maintaining your corporate records after you've set up your business. Now, when you first set up your business, you've probably done a bunch of filings with your state. And of course, many of these can be done online these days. In the old days, we used to take hard copies down to your Secretary of State. We'd use different services, but most of these can now be filed online. It makes things a lot faster. But once you've got everything filed, the most important next step you need to take is you need a system for your documents. For me, I prefer 3-ring binders for everything. I use them all over my office. You can actually see them behind me in that bookcase there. I have them to organize documents that I need for my law practice. They organize newsletters and other reading material I have. If clients have litigation matters, I have binders for each different lawsuit. I even use them at home to keep track of all of my kids' activities and try to keep all their schedules straight. And I encourage my clients, especially business clients, to use 3-ring binders as well. If you prefer electronic organization, you definitely want to make sure that the lawyer you work with has what's called a client portal. In your client portal, you'll have access to PDF versions of all of your documents. You can upload new documents as they come in, and you can send secure messages to your attorney. I know when I added that feature a few years ago to my law firm, it was one of the most well-received things I've done for my clients. Now, you may be asking yourself, I've set up my documents, I'm filed with the state, what documents do I have to keep organized at this point? There's going to be a list of common documents we can look at that you should probably keep organized. The first is your articles of organization. These are the documents you filed with the state when you first started your company. If you're like me and you have a professional license of some type, you want to keep together any documents that you have to file to show that you're licensed and that you've renewed your license and you're in good standing. Some companies use what are called bylaws, which are drafted when you file your business, and these are rules and guidelines for your company. They don't get filed with your state, but they should be kept with your documents. Now, one place that a lot of people fail to put these proper documents together is what's called corporate minutes. And these are when your corporation or your company or your business has a meeting, somebody is supposed to be appointed as the secretary and keep minutes of the meeting. You'll want to make sure that your corporate minutes are kept together in your corporate binder with the rest of your documents. Along with your corporate minutes, you also are probably going to have corporate resolutions. So a corporate resolution is when you are deciding as a company to do something. So for example, you're approving new officers and board members, you're setting up a corporate bank account. A lot of times the bank will ask you to either give them a corporate resolution or they'll have a form that they use and they'll ask you and the rest of the owners of the company to sign it and usually have it notarized. If you're buying or selling real estate for your company, if you're approving your initial bylaws and other documents, especially if you're going to merge with another business or enter into a joint venture, they're going to want to see a corporate resolution that the majority owners of the business at least have decided on this course of action. And if you're taking out a loan, just like opening a bank account, a financial institution will often ask you to provide them with a corporate resolution that authorizes the loan. And I just dealt with this last week, if you're going to relocate your business to a new address, you want to have a corporate resolution in place in your books. It's one of those things where chances are your state's not going to ask for a copy of it. They're just going to ask you to file the amendment with the state, but you want to have it just in case. You also want to have any of your corporate agreements in your binder. So you want your operating agreement, your shareholder agreement. If it gets amended or changed over time, you want to make sure the most recent version is in your binder with your corporate documents. Now, the filings you do with the state, most of them are done by PDF these days. So you don't have to worry about keeping a hard copy because the state has a copy of it in place on PDF on their servers. However, it's not a bad idea to print out the PDF and keep a copy with the rest of your documents. One thing that people commonly have to look for is their EIN, their employee identification number that they get from the IRS. If you're doing those online these days, nothing comes in the mail. There's no hard copy, but it's a good idea to keep that letter handy because oftentimes you have to refer back to it and make sure you've got your EIN number. And then finally, if you have share certificates, you want to keep copies of those as well as a ledger called a transfer ledger that shows who has the shares, when they were distributed, and if there's any outstanding. Now, the common question I get is, why do you need to keep these documents? The most important reason is your state may require it. So if the state requires you keep these documents, have them in a nice organized place. 2, if you're in a lawsuit, you might have to provide that you're proof that you're actually a legitimate company. One easy way to do it, if the other side has raised this defense saying they're not a legitimate company, you could bring in your corporate records and show them, here's my books. Third, banks and lenders may want to see these documents when you're applying for financing. Not just the corporate resolution. They may want to see your operating agreement. They may want to see who's got shares. They may want to see your transfer ledger. And most importantly, if you go to sell your company. Nobody wants to buy a disorganized company. Well, I'll take that back. They may want to buy a disorganized company because they can offer you less money for it, because it seems like you don't have your stuff together, and they can give you a lowball offer because you're not really on top of things. However, if you enter into some kind of negotiations to sell your company or merge with somebody else, there's nothing more impressive than saying, here's the corporate binder, here's all the documents you're looking for laid out perfectly. Now, the last thing that people ask is, when we're going through all these different documents, do I need to file these with the state? So the first thing is, if it's your initial filings, yes, that's how you get your company started. If it's things like your corporate agreements, your minutes, your annual meeting notes, no, you don't need to file those with the state. And then finally, your licensing documents, yes, very much so. You need to make sure the proper documents are filed with the state. Now, there's a lot of different documents we've talked about and a lot of different things you can do with them. And if this seems a little bit over your head and you've got a lot of documents floating around and you're not sure what to do, let's set up a legal strategy session. You can go to my website, andrewmayers.com, and on the front page is a red button that lets you schedule a legal strategy session. We can hop on the phone and talk for 15 to 20 minutes and go through where you are now and where your documents are. Because the most important thing you need to have is a system, and we want to make sure you have a system in place to manage your corporate documents.